So, The Bad Guys is an animated heist film about anthropomorphic animal characters who are traditionally written as villains who realize that maybe they don't have to be the villains. Maybe they can actually be good guys and not just be the bad guys. So, very kind of like a simplistic story here. I think for some people who might have gotten used to a similar anthropomorphic film called Zootopia, which did challenge more of the nature versus nurture elements, they might be a little bit frustrated by the bad guys because rather than better exploring, yeah, either nature versus nurture or the ethics of doing something good that is, much better for society rather than being selfish, the film just kind of reduces it to just like, bad people realizing that, oh, if you do good stuff, you feel good. Very simplistic. And, and as an adult, like, might get frustrated on that level, but considering this is a film for kids, I think it's very on the nose here, where I think kids will get the bigger lesson here about not judging people by stereotypes and all that. So yeah, very on the nose, but also very on target is another way to think of it. So the film takes place in this city where apparently these anthropomorphic animals exist alongside other human characters. Like there's a few animals strewn about. But yeah, it's apparently like human anthropomorphic universe. And there's a whole group of these animals, like a wolf, a spider, snake, piranha, shark, who are all like a big gang who basically specialize in robbing banks. And I gotta say, I like the way that their heists are staged. Like the animation style here, really works. Like it's a brilliant mixture of kind of 3D, but with like little aspects of like 2D animation here and there, like little like details on the face or the smoke in the background, or like action lines here and there. Great little style for it. I love the introduction too, where you have their leader, Mr. Wolf, voiced by Sam Rockwell, basically breaking the fourth wall and explaining to the audience everything about his gang while they're in the middle of a bank heist. And apparently I didn't realize this too, but like apparently for like the whole first opening shot doesn't really have like a cut until much later in the film. Like it's a very brilliant kind of like one shot cut, for which I know it doesn't sound like much like an animated film, because yeah, in an animated film you can tailor it as much as you like, but you still have to render it all out and you have to make sure everything connects here. So there's still a lot of assembly in it. But I like that they introduce it. We get to know all the characters here. Like definitely Mr. Wolf has the most character here, just because like Mr. Wolf is the first character who realizes, oh, being good can actually mean something more, and and then he starts liking people a little bit more. All the other characters are pretty much in their specific boxes of how they're staged. Like you have Mr. Snake, who is voiced by Mark Maron, and he's basically a curmudgeon. You have Miss Tarantula, voiced by Aquafina. She's a hacker. She doesn't really have too much of an arc here, just other than having like sass. Craig Robinson voices Mr. Shark, who's a master of disguise, which they don't really do much of it. Like it feels like he's only there for like the spy jokes, which is the joke here is that he's a master of disguise, except for the fact that he's a giant shark, and not all, and his disguises aren't convincing, but apparently they are in this universe. So he's more fun on like a visual level. And the same goes for Mr. Piranha. Mr. Piranha is basically the crazy muscle of the group, voiced by Anthony Ramos. So they all fit into their neat little boxes. They're all bad guys. They enjoy being bad guys, and they figure out that it's fun to be good. But they have to learn it the hard way. And a part of someone who makes that journey hard is Professor Rupert Marmalade the Fourth. What a name! Voiced by Richard Ayoade. Ayoade. I keep mispronouncing his name. Basically, Marmalade is considered like the best animal in town. Like if they're the bad guys, he's the good guy, and he's basically taken it upon himself to teach the bad guys how to be good. And while they do this, they learn about stereotypes and how to get around them and how to prove yourself. And basically, the way that the rest of the film could be summed up is that it's basically these characters learning all about chaotic good. Especially when they get in contact with the mayor of the city, Diane Foxington, voiced by Zazie Beetz. Foxington obviously is a fox. In case it weren't clear, Marmalade is a guinea pig. it's weird. Like all the other characters have like these very like simple animal names, Mr. Wolf, Mr. Snake, and then you have Professor Marmalade. Like even Foxington has Fox in her name. Oh my goodness. Like action wise, there's a lot of great action in this film, and like I said, I like the style. I like the way it's filmed. I especially like all the little cues that they take from Lupin the Third, and they're very subtle cues. Like just like definitely you can see a lot of Lupin in Mr. Wolf, based on the way he dressed, and obviously not to point it out too much here, but of course, Lupin means wolf, so Mr. Wolf, you get it. But like I said, a lot of stylistic choices that really reflect that. Like at one point, they drive around in a Fiat. Lupin used to drive a lot in a Fiat. He has a lot of like the poses that Lupin would do, like with like his arched legs and his and basically like his hung arms like that. And then of course, and in case any of that seemed too subtle, there's a scene in the climax where he actually does like the Lupin's classic like swimming through air, which he does to like get to where he's going. So a lot of great odes to Lupin there. And I guess like the subtlety with all like the visual stuff, I think made the film work for me past like the more like overt theme, because let's put it this way. There's a scene in this film where Marmalade is trying to make these bad guys reformed and basically dresses them up in pajamas. And Mr. Wolf is dressed up as a sheep. And your mind probably gets it now, wolf in sheep's clothing. And thankfully, the film never points this out. It's a visual gag. It's meant to, be a development of his character and to show that, he's not based on the stereotypes that he's born from, and realize the skin that he wears, obviously. And they do it actually quite subtly. I was surprised on that level. So like, so I guess like on like in terms of like the gags and the stylistic choices and where it's drawing from, and a lot of inspirations are kind of obvious here. They don't have to point them out too much. Like at one point they do reference that Mr. Wolf goes full George Clooney, so there's a little bit of that in there. So like, yeah, can you tell we're pulling from other heist films? But hey, if you're gonna pull from heist films, pull from the best, and they actually kind of do here. But yeah, just like the little subtlety with the gags and stuff like that, and the little visual cues I thought really worked here. There are a few sequences that are kind of like, yeah, they're par for the course. Like you kind of expect them. Like obviously there's going to be a song and dance number. There's going to be a lot of like, very, very sassy scenes. There's some jokes involving butts and stuff like that. That's par for the course. They didn't really annoy me too, just because I think even though these characters have very simplistic personalities, I like the way that they're designed. I like that the bad guys themselves do have like the mark of like a good character in an animated film is if you can recognize them in silhouette, and you very much can. You can see it all over the place here. Also, like I almost forgot this character, but they're also pursued by a very eccentric police chief, Misty Luggins, a human being voiced by Alex Borstein, which has total Zenigata vibes from Lupin the Third written all over it. Just constantly obsessing with these people, always wanting to catching them. It's her life's work, and by the time she actually does like manage to catch them a few times, she's depressed that she got that far. So it's drawing from a lot of Lupin stuff here, but hey, if you're gonna draw from like animated films and like heist films, why not draw from it? And they actually do kind of come into their own with this film and make it more of its own thing, even if like a lot of like the action and chase sequences kind of feel like, these are decent scenes. Although I will say probably the most disappointing thing in the film is the third act. Just because the third act, in order to make it more exciting and have more action, it takes the sci-fi route, which I don't think really works here. It kind of makes it feel more generic than it should be. It's kind of like, it's kind of like the same feeling I had when watching Detective Pikachu, which is like, okay, this is working as a detective film, but then you bring in like this sci-fi angle and it feels like a typical action blockbuster. And the same thing happens with the bad guys. It feels like a genuine heist film, but then loses quite a bit of that in the third act, which just feels like a generic animated action film. And thankfully, it does come around at the end by kind of like realizing, oh, yep, we're still a heist film. We did include this weird sci-fi angle, but it's still, about these guys, this whole gang realizing that they have to reform their ways and take responsibility, which is it's a decent lesson. So like stylistically, it's a great looking film. It's definitely solid matinee entertainment. That I think works. I think for like the little nods to Ocean's 11 and Lupin the Third, I think a lot of adults will be fairly entertained by this. Kids will obviously like it because like the characters have very sassy personalities and they make jokes about butts and all that. So kind of par for the course stuff here, but it's charming. It's a charming little animated heist film.